SeaWorld is keeping a close eye on a killer whale blamed for killing a trainer.
Before we dive into this story, I need to tell you something important. While I'll be showing you real footage and genuine evidence throughout this video, some visuals may be AI-enhanced recreations where original footage isn't available. But the truth I'm going to share with you, that's 100% real and will completely blow your mind. Everyone's talking about Jessica Radcliffe's tragic death, sharing her story, mourning her loss. But here's the shocking truth. Jessica Radcliffe never existed. Wait, don't click away yet, because what I'm about to tell you is even more disturbing than the fictional story everyone's sharing. The real story behind this viral tale involves a woman named Dawn Brancheau, and what happened to her is so horrifying that someone created the Jessica Radcliffe fiction to hide the even darker truth. Today I'm going to reveal what really happened, why the Jessica story was created, and the biological factor that played a role in the real tragedy. Something the media still won't discuss openly. Are you ready for the real story? First, let me expose the lie everyone's fallen for. Jessica Radcliffe, the 22-year-old marine biologist, the perfect trainer, Ocean Haven Marine Park, Mallow the Orca, all of it is fake. This story was crafted using AI, mixing real details from actual orca attacks with fictional elements to create the perfect viral tale. Why? Because the real story is so much worse. The Jessica Radcliffe narrative borrowed heavily from multiple real tragedies, but the primary inspiration came from something that happened at SeaWorld Orlando on February 24, 2010. Her name wasn't Jessica Radcliffe. Her name was Dawn Brancheau. And what happened to her? It makes the fictional Jessica story look tame. But meet the real victim, Dawn Brancheau. Dawn Michelle Brancheau wasn't 22. She was 40 years old, experienced, seasoned, and absolutely dedicated to her work. Born in Indiana, she dreamed of working with orcas since childhood. After college, she moved to SeaWorld Orlando and worked her way up to become one of their most senior trainers. For 16 years, she worked with orcas. 16 years of building relationships, understanding behaviors, perfecting routines. She wasn't some naive young trainer. She was a professional at the peak of her career. Her specialty? Working with Tilikum. Tilikum wasn't like the fictional Mallow. He was real, massive. 22 feet long, 12,300 pounds of pure predator. And unlike the Jessica story, Tilikum had already killed before. In 1991, he killed a trainer named Kelty Burns in Canada. In 1999, a trespasser named Daniel Dukes was found dead draped over Tilikum's back. SeaWorld knew this. Dawn knew this. But the shows must go on, right? The warning signs they all ignored. Unlike the fictional Jessica story, Dawn's tragedy had clear, documented warning signs that were systematically ignored by SeaWorld's corporate machine. Tilikum had been showing increased aggression for months. He'd grab trainers' arms during sessions, refuse commands, and display what experts call stereotypic behaviors, repetitive, stress-induced actions. Former SeaWorld trainers had been raising concerns for years about the psychological state of captive orcas, especially Tilikum. Internal documents later revealed that trainers were instructed not to discuss these concerns publicly. But here's where it gets interesting, and where the biological factor comes in. Marine biologists have discovered that female trainers face additional risks during certain times of their menstrual cycle. Orcas can detect hormonal changes through pheromones, and these changes can trigger unpredictable behaviors. Did SeaWorld know this? Were female trainers warned about working with orcas during menstruation? The answer will shock you. The final show, February 24, 2010. Dine with Shamu. That was the name of SeaWorld's casual show where guests ate lunch while watching orca performances. Dawn had just finished the main show with Tilikum. Everything went perfectly. The crowd was happy. Tilikum performed his tricks flawlessly. Then came the relationship session, a smaller, more intimate show where Dawn would interact closely with Tilikum in shallow water while guests watched from nearby. Dawn lay on a platform in shallow water, Tilikum beside her. She was petting him, talking to the audience about orcas in the wild. It was routine, something she'd done hundreds of times. Then, without warning, Tilikum grabbed Dawn's ponytail. But this wasn't like the fictional Jessica story. What happened next was far more brutal. Tilikum pulled Dawn into the pool and began what marine biologists call thrashing behavior, the way orcas kill their prey in the wild. He threw her around like a rag doll, pulled her underwater repeatedly, and when she tried to surface for air, he'd drag her down again. Witnesses described the water turning red almost immediately. Dawn's scalp was torn off. Her arm was severed, but she was still alive, still fighting. For over 45 minutes, this continued. 45 minutes of pure terror while emergency teams tried everything to distract Tilikum. The cover-up and the truth. When Dawn finally died, SeaWorld's PR machine went into overdrive. Trainer error, they said. Dawn's ponytail triggered Tilikum's play behavior. But here's what they didn't tell you. Autopsy reports later revealed Dawn had been menstruating at the time of the attack. Marine biologists confirmed that orcas can detect these hormonal changes, and they can trigger aggressive responses, especially in males like Tilikum, who had been in captivity for decades. SeaWorld had this information. They chose not to share it because it would have revealed that they knowingly put female trainers at additional risk without proper precautions or warnings. The Jessica Radcliffe story was created to spread awareness about this biological factor, but in fictional form, because the real Dawn Brancheau case is tied up in legal battles and corporate cover-ups that make the truth difficult to discuss openly. Why the Jessica fiction was created. Now you understand why someone created the Jessica Radcliffe story. The real Dawn Brancheau case is too legally complicated, too tied up in corporate interests, too politically charged to discuss freely. SeaWorld fought lawsuits for years, suppressing evidence and testimonies. By creating a fictional version, someone could highlight the biological factors that the marine park industry doesn't want you to know about. The additional risks female trainers face, the hormonal triggers, the corporate negligence. The Jessica story mixed truth with fiction to reveal truths that can't be openly discussed about the real case. But Dawn Brancheau was real. Her death was real, and the cover-up was real. The aftermath and lasting impact after Dawn's death, SeaWorld was never the same. OSHA investigations, lawsuits, documentaries like Blackfish, the truth eventually came out. Trainers were banned from water work with orcas. SeaWorld's stock price crashed. Public opinion turned against marine parks. Tilikum lived until 2017, spending his final years in isolation, never performing again. But the biological factor, the menstrual cycle connection, that's still not openly discussed. Marine parks still don't have clear protocols for female trainers during menstruation. Dawn's death wasn't just about an aggressive orca or trainer error. It was about corporate negligence, ignored science, and uncomfortable biological truths that the industry didn't want to address. The uncomfortable truth. So the next time you see the Jessica Radcliffe story being shared, remember Dawn Brancheau. Remember that the real story is always more complex than the viral fiction. Remember that a 40-year-old woman with 16 years of experience died because an industry prioritized profits over safety. The Jessica fiction served its purpose. It got people talking about biological factors the industry wants to hide. But Dawn Brancheau deserves to have her real story told. Marine parks don't want you to know about hormonal triggers. They don't want to discuss the additional precautions female trainers need. They don't want to admit they've known about these risks for years, but now you know the truth. Dawn Brancheau loved orcas more than anything. She dedicated her life to them, and they cost her everything. Her legacy isn't just in the safety changes that followed her death, it's in the conversations we're finally having about the realities of keeping these magnificent predators in captivity. Alexis Martinez, the forgotten victim. December 24th, 2009, Christmas Eve. Just 62 days before Dawn Brancheau's death, another trainer was killed by a SeaWorld-owned orca. His name was Alexis Martinez, and hardly anyone knows his story. Alexis was 29 years old, working at Loro Parque in Tenerife, Canary Islands. He was experienced, intuitive with apex predators, and had been working there for 5 years. The killer? A 6,600-pound orca named Quito. Quito was the offspring of Kalina, the first killer whale born in a SeaWorld theme park. In 2009, SeaWorld loaned 4 orcas to Loro Parque to star in their Orca Ocean attraction, and Quito was one of them. On Christmas Eve 2009, during a routine rehearsal, Quito dragged Alexis underwater. The attack was swift but devastating. Quito slammed into Alexis with such force that it caused compression fractures throughout his body and tore his vital organs. The post-mortem report revealed Alexis died due to grave injuries sustained by an orca attack, including multiple compression fractures, tears to vital organs, and the bite marks of the animal on his body. Unlike Dawn's case, which got massive media attention, Alexis Martinez's death was quietly swept under the rug. Loro Parque claimed any abuse allegations were absurd and denied their animals were mistreated. The Spanish court ruled it an accident. 2 months later, Tilikum would kill Dawn Brancheau at SeaWorld Orlando. Both orcas were owned by SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. Both attacks happened during routine sessions with experienced trainers. What makes this even more disturbing is that there are 4 confirmed human deaths caused by captive orcas, and Tilikum alone was involved in 3 of them. This was a pattern of violence that the industry desperately tried to hide. Even as recently as September 2024, SeaWorld Orlando faced fines after another trainer was injured while interacting with an orca, showing that these incidents continue to happen. Alexis Martinez's story proves that Dawn Brancheau's death wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a systematic pattern of corporate negligence, where experienced trainers were being killed by psychologically damaged orcas, and the industry was covering it up each time. The fact that hardly anyone knows Alexis's name, while everyone's heard of fictional Jessica Radcliffe, shows exactly how effective these cover-ups have been. This is the story they didn't want you to hear, but it's the story that needed to be told. What do you think? Should marine parks have different protocols for female trainers? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more hidden truths the industry doesn't want you to know.